Well, folks, there's been a new way of stirring the pot in the EV industry today, which is revolving all around the word inventories. The word around all of social media is around inventories and the amount of price cuts these companies are about to face with reducing margins. And funnily enough, all of this is particularly stemming from these flyover videos that a channel by the name of Bear's Workshop is doing on YouTube, where he tends to fly over the factories of some of the bigger startup companies like Nikola and Lucid to see what's going on. And as you can clearly see, there seems to be an inventory of vehicles next to the production plant, which is raising concerns from company investors and customers about whether or not there's going to be price cuts coming in the future, and whether or not this is a sign of these companies potentially going out of business. And well, that question is exactly what I want to address in this video. But as usual, guys, before we get into it, make sure to drop me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And to start things off, I want to make it clear that the EV industry is going to go hand in hand with what's going on in the auto industry. I think people don't understand this in the investment communities these days, which is the fact that the auto industry is pivoting to the downside. Supply chains have improved, demand is waning as interest rates have gone up, and people are now selling their cars for a profit because obviously it's one of the only ways they can convert an asset into real profit, because obviously real estate prices are still falling like crazy. Before we even address this idea of inventories, we need to understand that the Manheim Used Car Index on a rolling 12-month percentage change is at its lowest point since 2009. This is obviously a sign of a distressed car market, meaning inventories for manufacturers and OEMs are naturally going to start going up. This is basic macroeconomics, guys. This is not that complicated, and this is one of the reasons why I think this inventory FUD is really baseless in the EV community. Even Tesla just announced price cuts on their Model 3 and Model Ys, which are obviously stirring the pot for the used car market and instilling more fear from sellers on the value of their vehicles. And guess what, guys? This is completely normal, especially for EV startups. EV startups are faced with a more difficult charge of ramping production while they're facing the pressures of the economy. As we all know, most EV startups don't fail because of a lack of demand, because obviously Byton, Faraday Future, and all these other companies that went bankrupt all had insane amounts of reservations for their vehicles. The problem came from not being able to produce them appropriately and not being able to raise the right money to build a factory. And that, in my opinion, is what's setting apart the EV companies of today. I'm talking about the top 4 big companies in the market today in the US that are started from the ground up. We have Lucid Motors, Rivian, Tesla, and even Nikola Motors. It's pretty clear that these 4 public companies are the only EV manufacturers that are actually ramping production from a purpose-built factory. And the idea that having an inventory at your facility is a sign of a company in distress is not a bad way to judge a business. All these companies I just stated are at different stages of their production roadmap. Tesla, for example, has been in this business for almost 20 years. Lucid started around 8 years ago, Nikola started around 6 years ago, and Rivian came on the block just around 10 years ago. But all 3 of these companies that I just stated only started producing vehicles within the last 12 to 18 months. Meaning their factories are going to be actually ramping up production, meaning they're going to be producing more vehicles that are actually going to be sold. Because they obviously need to verify their production lines, deal with any supplier bottlenecks, and make sure they're dual sourcing and single sourcing the right components for their vehicles. That is how the production line of any automotive company works. That requires a buildup on inventory to make sure that when there is demand for your vehicle, you're able to attest to your customers. And even though people think that Tesla not having a lot of vehicles sitting in their factory lots is a good sign and it's a bad sign for other companies, don't understand that because of Tesla's longer operation in this business, a lot of their vehicles are either in the hands of dealers, used car markets, or actually in transportation or sitting in warehouses. There's no way for us to judge exactly the quantity of vehicles Tesla's produced that are not sold just yet. All these vehicles you see in this video in this parking lot could be sold. Tesla could just be waiting for some parts. They could be waiting for testing, quality assessment, or they could be waiting for financing and completing the transaction from the customer. There could be a million reasons why inventories like this exist, which is why I think it's very difficult and very misleading to make assumptions about businesses based on how many inventory of vehicles they're holding. Yeah, there are numerous disadvantages of holding inventory. This is basic economics. There could be higher storage costs. There could be risks of that inventory becoming obsolete, risks of natural disaster. But there are actually more important pros to holding inventory, which particularly fall in the hands of startups like Lucid, Nikola, and Rivian. It allows a company to have a quicker response time to customers, which is important when these companies are trying to acquire customers in the first place and trying to build a brand image. There's also a significant decreased risk of shortages, which is especially important in an environment like this when supply is actually running out for critical chips. Inflation has come down, but there is still an excessive demand for particular types of semiconductors and equipment for electric vehicles, because obviously production is coming online like crazy here in the US. And like I've already stated, this is an industry-wide phenomenon that's not only hitting EV manufacturers. A lot of the rest of the industry actually has it a lot easier to handle this kind of situation where we're going into a recession, where demand for cars and even trucks is falling like crazy because they have established supply chains and all their factories are already ramped up, meaning they're producing vehicles near or at their rated capacity of production. A company that is ramping up in the startup space has actually a more difficult time doing that, and having inventory allows them to buffer supply and demand at a time when it's more crucial for them to establish a customer acquisition strategy. And that is why it's difficult for us to judge these companies at such an early stage. Now, obviously, if you hold inventory as a more established automaker like Tesla, then that's more of a bad thing. Because if you're holding inventory at a level where you're producing millions of vehicles a year, that inventory is actually going to cost you more money per unit than if you're a startup that is ramping up production. Because it likely means you're not understanding how your market demand is actually moving. It's one of the reasons why Tesla has recently cut prices of their vehicles, because they're trying to instantly get rid of the inventory that they're building up, because obviously they have such a massive manufacturing capacity. Now, in a market like electric pickup trucks, where you're getting more competition from somebody like Ford, Rivian will definitely be forced to cut prices. But it all depends on the competition in your industry, how your macroeconomics are evolving, and also which pricing segment are you actually targeting. And believe it or not, I think Nikola Motors is the perfect example of what it means to have a very fluid inventory, meaning you have really different ways of acquiring customers, really different marketing and purchasing models, which means holding inventory allows you to keep more options. Not every single truck or car that you make is going to be instantly sold. That's just not how the industry works. You obviously build them, you test them, you do quality assurance, you make sure that the customer is able to pay and that they're delivering the vehicle at the right time to the right place. For example, Nikola's customer purchase orders using their California HVIP incentive program currently sit at 134 trucks, meaning that's a separate marketing and customer channel for them. But on top of that, they also have POs, LOIs, which are letters of intent, and MOUs, which are memorandums of understanding, of another 510 trucks, meaning the customers in this batch of orders are going to probably receive their trucks at a different time than those that are in the customer POs from the HVIP program. Meaning all these trucks are going to be either sold at different times or they're going to be sold at different prices, which could also happen through dealer networks. And dealers often have to deal with their own stuff with markups, maintenance, and service packages, which tend to delay the acquisition of customers. This really just goes to show you there could be hundreds of reasons why every truck or vehicle that a startup in the space is making is not instantly sold out of the gate. This is just not how the auto industry works, and I think we really need to better understand and spread awareness about what it really means to hold inventory, because clearly there's a lot of FUD in this industry today. And I hope this video helps you guys in understanding exactly why these dynamics exist today and how they particularly affect startup companies. But as usual, guys, let me know your thought down in the comment sections below. This is obviously just my opinion on what's been going on, so I would definitely love to hear your opinion down there. But as usual, guys, let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.